What he did in 2 months, AI does in 8 seconds. So now we wonder why audits are up.
Welcome to the Compliant AF podcast, where healthcare compliance isn't just a checklist, it's a competitive advantage.
I'm Amy Wood, CEO of Copperpenny Consulting, a cybersecurity and HIPAA compliance geek who thinks encryption is awesome.
And I'm Kara Kelley, CEO of Clinical HR, fractional HR business partner and HR nerd who is weirdly passionate about employment policy.
If you're a dental or healthcare leader who's tired of check-the-box compliance and wants to actually understand what the rules are and how to build a practice that doesn't live in fear of audits or lawsuits,
you are in the right place. We are digging into the stuff that keeps practice leaders up at night.
We'll break down the boring, call out the BS, and share real strategies with a little snark and a whole lot of caffeine.
This isn't legal advice. We are not your lawyers.
We are two consultants who have seen way too many practices get in trouble because no one explained the rules in a way that actually made sense or made them care.
But since this is a compliance podcast, the content in this podcast or any associated clips is for informational purposes only and does not constitute legal, financial, medical, tax, or regulatory advice. We are not attorneys. Clinical HR LLC and Copperpenny Consulting LLC are not legal firms, and listening to this podcast does not create a client relationship. Always consult a qualified professional advisor for guidance specific to your situation.
So buckle up, because boring compliance just got compliant AF.
Hey, we are back today with one of our favorite dental compliance experts, Rick Garofolo, the practice mechanic, does all things business, all things billing, and has a vast, my goodness, how many years have you been in dentistry, Rick?
Just hit 26.
Oh my goodness. So vast in-depth knowledge of compliance just across the board in dentistry, which is why he's one of our favorite people to talk to here at Compliant AF. Welcome, Rick. Thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me.
I know I was excited to bring you on here. I was following a conversation in your group, in your Dental Billing Business Academy group, that was a question that just keeps coming up. And so Amy and I have talked about this from time to time, that there are just some dental myths, compliance myths that just won't die. And this was one of the ones that I saw talking about employees and their dental care when it's received by the practice. How do we handle that? How do we pay for that? I actually saw another conversation recently in a different group about, hygienists clocking out whenever they're working on their family members, or they have to pay a certain amount or run insurance and waive the patient copay. We just see a whole mess of a lot of different things, despite the fact that there are actually some rules around that. So let's chat about that.
Yeah, there are. And that is true. This is one of those myths that won't die. And it really drives me crazy because I hear that all the time. Well, we'll just accept what insurance pays and write off the difference. And people don't understand that they're committing insurance fraud. It's called overbilling. You're overbilling the insurance company by doing that because you're representing that the fee is higher than it actually is on a claim form, which is a legal document. The reason that drives me crazy, I think, is different than what people think. Number one, you treat people the same no matter their insurance status. That's the rule. Doesn't matter if you have insurance or not, I'm charging you the same. So if you're not charging an uninsured employee, then you don't charge an insured employee. You can still send a claim. You just put 0 on the claim form. We're doing it for free. We do it for free for our employees. And this is the part that drives me nuts. People will say, well, it's the insurance company. It's Delta that's paying. I'm not worried about that. It's Principal that's paying. I'm not worried about that. People don't realize, we talk a lot in my group about self-funded dental plans, and you're in HR. So you know a lot about self-funded plans, administrative service only plans. We do those because they save the employers money. I don't want to get into what it is. We could have a whole different episode on that, but they save employers money. But the bottom line of that is, at the end of the day, the employer is the one who's responsible for making those claim payments. So it's not Delta Dental that you're overcharging. It's the business 82% of the time, because 82% of employer plans are self-funded in the United States. 82% of the time, It's not the insurance company you're taking money from, it's that small business. My employees, our plan is a self-funded plan. If one of my employees was going to a dentist that was overcharging them, they're not overcharging principal, they're overcharging Rick. You're taking money out of my pocket because you're overcharging. So, I mean, there are legal ways to do it, and you can say, we don't do work for free. We give you $1,000 policy. We give you $1,000 to use towards dental treatment. As long as you do that for insured and uninsured employees, that's totally fine. Then you use that $1,000 to pay their co-insurances, their copay. When they run out, they start paying. Your uninsured employees, they use that $1,000. When they run out, they start paying. That you can do, and that's totally acceptable.
And is that something that they need to put like as a credit on the employee's account? Is it something that they need to have on the books somewhere? Because see, I get into this conversation a lot whenever I work on an employee handbook, because we get to the benefits and leave section, and dental care through the practice is often one of the benefits. I would say some specialty practices won't. Like if it's a pediatric practice or if it's oral surgery,
Right.
they don't necessarily have the ability or desire, even in some cases, to provide some of those services to even just the team member, let alone team member and spouse or other adult members of their family. So I end up having some very in-depth conversations, and I cannot write anything that I know to be insurance fraud. So yes, when they come and say, well, what we typically have been doing, or oftentimes it's an acquisition. So it's, well, what the seller did was he would, just run their insurance and then just waive the patient portion. And I'm like, yeah, I can't write that policy. If you want to do that, I don't want to know about it, because I don't want to have to get called to testify at any kind of hearing or deposition. And I'm certainly not going to provide a written policy that says something that I know to be fraud. But I will get sometimes, this workaround of, I'm going to give them a credit of a certain amount, or, we put it on their account at the beginning of the year, or, whatever the case may be. My follow-up question to that, though, is always, what if you have an employee who does need dental care and it exceeds that? Would you do it for them? Because if you would, do we really need to put an exact dollar amount in there? If you are just going to go ahead and basically ignore the fact that you gave everybody a limit and do for your team and take care of your team, valid, absolutely. But if you're going to do it, I'd be careful about putting that limit too low and then, just blowing it out of the water every year.
Right. And then, I mean, you asked the good question, which is, do you just put that on their account as an account credit? Well, now we run into situations where, is that a cash value? Because you have states like Florida where any credit on an account as of January 1st of this year has to be refunded to the patient within 30 days. So
Okay.
now I put $1,000 credit on your account for you to use throughout the year, but my office is in Florida. So January 31st, I have to write you that $1,000 check if you haven't used it, because it's a credit on your account. So now is there a cash value to it? Is there not? Is it a benefit?
What if team members don't use it? What if you do it for their family and you give X number for each family member, but somebody's a single individual and doesn't have a family? Are they also like there's a whole.
Right, exactly. Because now it's, is PTO given as of January 1st, or is it earned throughout the year? If it's just given, well, now you have an employee who has 4 weeks of PTO a year. You give it to them January 1st. They quit January 3rd. You've got to pay them out for that month.
Depends on the state, depends on what's in your handbook. But yes, it can.
Right, exactly. Whereas if they've earned it.
Would it make more sense for that doctor, like a Florida practice, would it make more sense for them to provide a stipend on their paycheck toward dental care in whatever dollar amount that could be, accrued or whatever throughout the year of their employment, and then they could actually pay the practice with whatever rate? Would that be allowed?
That you can do from an insurance billing standpoint. You absolutely can. And listen, I don't, I'm not running here. I'm not running a dental office, but because we work with dental offices, that's what we do. I care about my employees' teeth. Plus, I have a self-funded plan and, I want them prevention instead of cure. I give everybody an FSA card with here's $1,000 that I'm putting onto your FSA for you. This is what it is. Use it for what you're going to use it for. If you use it at the dentist, great. If you're going to use it, to pay your co-insurance for your mammogram or your, whatever, your physical, well, there's no copay for physical, but for whatever, you're going to use it for that. That's what I'm giving you. It's flat rated across the board for everybody.
But you just said the magic word, that you're putting it on an FSA card. You have an actual structured plan for this. And so to answer your question, we run into this with health insurance stipends, where doctors can't afford to actually pay for an in-house health insurance plan. And so they want to just give a flat dollar amount to help contribute toward health insurance. Well, to my knowledge, if you are not on an actual plan and have something like an FSA or an HSA or a Kershaw or some of the other types of plans that are out there for this, that's a taxable bonus effectively. And you can't necessarily verify that that's what they're using it for. So if you said, instead of me providing just the care and us just kind of having some kind of a barter arrangement effect of like, you're my employee and I'm just not going to charge any money for this, then we're just going to give you a flat dollar amount. Okay. But now that's taxable. And what if they don't use it for dental care? And what if they need dental care later? Because what happens mentally with some of the team members is when they start getting those types of flat bonuses, they just see that as part of compensation and lifestyle creep and everything else. And all of a sudden, well, they need dental care, but it's not like they put that money aside every month specifically for it. And so now what? You just charge them full fee. And that would be the other side to that is, if you give them a stipend, are you still charging them full fee? And again, like, there's where some of the insurance compliance issues come into play. I see a lot of that as well with like a heavy PPO practice. And they say, well, I want to do the free care for my team, but like their family is going to get a 50% off if it's immediate or 25% off if it's extended, but you're taking insurances. So can you even do that in some cases? Like, that gets weirdly complicated and it's going to be very practice specific.
Yeah. And it is very practice specific, but at the same time, I mean, and here's what I tell people: when you talk about these people get 50% off, these people get 25% off, these people get 100% off, represent on the claim form that fee. If you do that, you're good. You can give whoever you like a discount. There's no law that says you can't give somebody a discount just because, hey, I love your shirt, here's 10% off. You can do that. You just, you can't do it because of like any federally protected class of, we give a 25% discount to, I don't know, all blondes or all whatever,
Blondes are not federally protected. If you tried to do it for like all women, for example, I hear you.
Well, yeah. They're not federally protected, but now in Pennsylvania, we have the Crown Act.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you saw that.
I meant by like gender-based discrimination, which is,
yeah, right.
But yes,
yeah, no,
I'm
you can't.
surprised Texas has Crown Act, but that's a here or there, whole other conversation.
It is.
Podcast episode.
Yeah, it's different episode. What about their contracts with the insurance company though? What about contracts with the insurance company saying like our members are getting the lowest price, for example? Are they able to provide discounts that might exceed what the insurance negotiation would be?
If you signed a contract with that most favorable price is called a most favored nations clause.
There we go.
If you signed a contract that has a most favored nations clause in it, you're going to be in trouble. Like, we give employees a 90% discount. Well, now that insurance that you have a most favored nations clause with, they also get a 90% discount on everything across the board. So you really have to pay attention to that. Fortunately, most favored nations clauses are becoming more rare than they were 10 years ago. But one of the big things I talk about in my classes all the time is actually read the contract. And I put snips and screenshots of the insurance contracts up on the board or up on the screen. And people will go, well, wait, where does it say that? And I could tell you, like, it's on page 9 of the MetLife contract. Well, they just emailed it to me 6 weeks ago. It's in my email. Let me look. And they'll go look and they'll go, oh my gosh, it's in there. Well, yeah, I didn't just make this up. I didn't have Chat GPT make up a MetLife contract.
Yeah. I have to, if you are not like an out of network practice or a complete fee for service cash paying practice, you have to look at your contracts. Anytime I say that, if you take PPOs at all, I'm only Delta Premier, go read the contract. I'm not going to pretend to be an expert at that when I'm writing your policy. I have to go by what you tell me. I can't write anything that I know to be fraud, but also I'm not going to review in depth all of your contracts because that's not my area of expertise. I am going to rely on you to know what's in your contract with the insurance companies that are in your network.
Right. And that's their job. They signed the contract. It's their job to have read it. And, I'm convinced. I joke with some of my friends in dental all the time. I'm like, I'm just going to put in my contract, my agreement for us to do insurance billing. I'm going to put in there something so ridiculous that says, like, you have to wear red in order to work with us. You have to wear red scrubs every Wednesday on a full moon.
We wear
And
pink on
then,
Wednesdays, Rick.
okay, but pink is a shade of red. And then see how many people actually email me back and say, hey, I don't even have red scrubs, because nobody reads it. I could put something so ridiculous in there and people would just sign it and agree to it. And then I could call them all on Wednesday and say, it's a full moon and a Wednesday. Are you wearing red scrubs? Because if not, you owe me 10 grand. Because that's written in the contract. Read the contract,
Nobody
but
does.
I would much rather, and this is my opinion on employee benefits, either charge no employee anything, say we're going to do everything for free, other than maybe you pay lab cost for a crown or
That was going to be
something.
my next
And
question.
then,
What about the ones that pay the lab?
yeah, and then you bill the lab cost. Our lab cost is $190. We're billing $190 to Delta because this employee is covered with Delta. Everything else is just done for free. Or, and this is kind of the way I prefer it, put that money onto an actual FSA, HSA card that they can then use to pay you. Because here's the other problem that I see, and this is kind of getting into more of a Kara Kelley kind of thing. I'll see, well, we were doing free work on employees, so I had the hygienist punch out because we did it for free, and I can't pay her if we're doing the work for free. Well, that's not fair because that's her livelihood. Her livelihood is cleaning teeth. It doesn't matter whose teeth she's cleaning. That's what she does for a living.
The other side of that is, regardless of whether they're related, you have an employee of the practice that is providing a service to a patient of the practice. And so now you've got wage and hour and workers' comp and liability, because if something happens, what if they injured their own family member, or if their own family member injures them or something like that? You have all of those issues that come into play, and you've had one of your employees working off the clock. So that's not going to look great for you. And that's one of those where they say, well, that's just kind of how we've always done it. Yes, I know. And it doesn't make it right. It also, from a culture perspective, do you have your other team members clocking out? And the response to that was, well, in fairness, the hygienist gets paid so much more. And that's their profession. You don't have your dental assistant clocking out. You don't have your front desk team members clocking out when their family gets seen. Why would you have somebody clocking out to work? I know it's their family, and you don't have to offer it as a perk if you don't want. But I see that. I also see them saying, well, they just do it on their lunch break, or they just come in after hours. I'm like, so again, you've got an employee of the practice working on patients of the practice on the clock or off the clock after hours now. Okay, that is certainly a choice.
And I will tell you, I got a call from a dental office. This was 7 or 8 years ago. Got a call from a dentist who needed advice on how to handle something because he was getting sued because his assistant and his office manager were running an after-hours clinic out of his office where a patient would come in and, the doctor would say, you need an extraction. It's going to be $250. Oh, I don't know if I can afford that. They'd go out to the front desk, and the office manager at the front desk would say, hey, we have a cash-only clinic. It'll be half price if you come back after 7 o'clock tonight. Well,
wow.
And the assistant was doing extractions and root canals for half the price the dentist charged, cash only, using his supplies in his office on his patients, off the clock. And they actually ended up killing somebody.
I bet.
Oh, no.
They got an infection and the person got septic and they passed away. And they came to sue the doctor. And the dad's like, I didn't pull that tooth.
Oh my gosh.
And, I had another one that found out he had an employee running an after hours clinic because he was going to his son's basketball game on the other side of town and he had to drive past his office, which he never did at night, and was like, whoa, why are all my lights on? Why are there 3 cars in my parking lot? And he pulled in and found his assistant pulling a tooth.
Wow.
After hours on one of his patients. So you don't want people working off the clock. You don't want people using your stuff. They're doing their job. Like you said, my front desk or my office manager's husband came in to get his teeth cleaned. I'm not making the front desk person punch out while she walks in the back and says to the hygienist, hey, just want to let you know, Steve's here. Did she punch out for that? Because that's her job. So why does the hygienist have to punch out to do hers? It doesn't make any sense.
And one of the best ways I've seen to handle that is by doing maybe a family day, or if you don't typically work Fridays, maybe 2, 3, 4, whatever Fridays a year, you have all non-emergency care provided to family members on that day. The people who are actually actively providing care are, of course, paid for it, but that's not something that you need every single person on deck for the whole day. And then just everybody gets their care taken care of. The team gets theirs taken care of maybe when there's a gap in patient schedule, but maybe family members come in on the day that everybody is there. So somebody's there supervising, the right people are on the clock, people who are working around the clock, but everybody else is, getting care. And
Right.
I think that can be a way to kind of balance that to where you don't have something like this or the opportunity for something like that to happen. Yikes. So, okay. Best way would be putting funds on an FSA card, talking about the insurance. I will also say, if you are going to have them run insurance or if that's a question, I always say, look, have your policy. This is our policy. It's maybe lab fees only and everything else is covered. If they feel they can get a better deal with their insurance on whatever it is that they need, fine, go through their insurance. But it's this one or that one. They don't get to kind of do some hybrid where we're getting the benefit of this and the insurance. They want to use insurance, that's fine, but it's full fee. It's properly billed through the insurance. They pay their patient copay, whatever.
Right.
Keep those things separate. I do have one question about that though. You said if they have, if they're doing lab fee only and they have insurance, you're billing the lab or billing insurance for the lab fees. What if they're completely taking care of all of it? They don't charge. They rarely have practices do this, but some of them won't charge at all, and they will even absorb the lab fee for the team members. If the team member has insurance, should they still submit a claim? Are they required to submit a claim so that the insurance company knows what work was done? Even zero claim, is that a requirement?
If you're in network, typically submitting the claim at a 0 is required. There are some remember there are 38 Delta companies that make up Delta Dental. Delta Dental of Arizona, just that one, just changed their contract this year to say we only want you to submit things for which you are charging. So if the patient has a Delta Dental of Arizona plan, then you don't have to submit it. But if they have a Delta of Georgia or Delta of Rhode Island or Delta of Pennsylvania or any of the others, and you're in network, then you do have to submit. Submit it as a $0 claim, because here's the other thing. You could do a crown on that patient, not submit it, and then, I don't know, the employee leaves and doesn't work for you anymore, still has Delta, and they go somewhere else because the crown fell off to get it re-cemented, and Delta says, we don't have history of a crown on that tooth. We're not going to pay for the re-cement because there is no crown there. Well, yes, there is. It was done on this date. Well, you were covered by us. Why was it not submitted?
And that's where it gets sketchy because, we've also got the thing where HIPAA allows for people to pay cash, and you have to honor that request. And I
Right.
actually had this happen. Actually, not me. Another consultant friend of mine. One of their clients, a dentist, was having some hand problems, and obviously, you want to make sure you're really having hand problems and not end up having it go to your malpractice insurance, because they'll just jack up your rates if you start having,
Yeah.
or your disability insurance for your business. And he paid cash, said, I am paying it direct. Do not submit this to insurance. And because that office had a policy of we submit everything no matter what, which I see a lot, happened to me with one of my kids for oral surgery. They just submitted to medical insurance too. And I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. But I paid you in full at the time of service. What are you doing?
Right.
And this is where it gets confusing for a lot of people. And with that doctor, it ended up screwing him on his disability insurance because it was submitted. The wheels are already in motion. So I'm just curious, practices seem to be really, really confused by these aspects of things because the insurance companies demand certain things and people take the path of least resistance
Well,
instead of
and my
understanding.
question, I guess, for both of you is then if HIPAA requires this and insurance requires that, what controls?
HIPAA.
Federal.
HIPAA.
It's a
The
law,
federal law
not a contract.
overrules any contract. The
Yep.
contract is second, but that, and I will tell you that I think the high-tech form is another one of those myths that just won't die. Because yes, you have that right to disclose the restriction as long as you pay for the service in full at the time of service. Sign the disclosure restriction saying, I don't want this submitted to my insurance. That is a federal law that overrides any contract you can sign.
So then why are insurance companies allowed to put those clauses in their contracts?
Well,
For business.
because that I could put, you have to wear pink on full moon Wednesdays in my contract. You could put anything in a contract. And as long as somebody agrees to it, that's fine. Now, here's the thing. Remember, part of the requirement of that form, that high tech, it's a HIPAA disclosure restriction is what it is. Part of the requirement of that form is that the patient has to pay your full office fee with not one penny of discount for that service in order for that form to be in effect. You don't get to use your insurance to pay for something and restrict the submission. It's one or the other you have to pick. You don't get a discount on the service and get to use the form. And this is another thing a lot of people miss. Written into the law that allowed the pay in full, not submitting to insurance thing to happen is Medicare patients are not able to use that. It doesn't matter if they're using a Medicare plan to pay in your office or not. If they're eligible for Medicare, they can't sign that form. They can't restrict their data. It's written into the federal law.
Eligible for meaning like they haven't even applied for it yet. Maybe they hit the age and they're eligible for, but they haven't actually decided to, they still can't.
The way the law is written is eligible.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
So basically, you turn 62, it's over.
So
Okay.
fascinating.
And, but that, again, that what you just described of I'm having some hand issues, I don't want it to go to my disability, that is an acceptable use of that form. That's an acceptable use. I think so many dentists now are being told, well, if you want to charge full fee for a service, just have the patient sign this form. Just so we can charge. There are real valid reasons like that for that rule to exist. It's not just because you're in network, but you want to charge $40,000 for something insurance only allows $6,000 for. Because the other part of that rule that people miss is that patient can rescind that restriction at any point in time for the next 50 years. They could come
Okay.
back to you 45 years later and say, I'm rescinding the restriction. And, listen, I get Facebook messages from, I call them muggles, from non-dental people. I get Facebook messages from non-dental people all the time asking about, I went to this dental office and here's my treatment plan and what do you think? And what I get them all the time. You can rescind that restriction at any time. So wait a year. Timely filing with the insurance company has now passed. Rescind the restriction. They have to now submit it to insurance per their contract. And when the insurance company writes back with the EOB, it's going to say this is a 100% write-off because you, the dental office, missed timely filing and cannot charge the patient. So now that $40,000 in cash you collected for that all-on-6 rehab case, you got to write that patient a $40,000 check back. You did it for free and ate the $13,000 lab fee.
Ouch.
Yeah. Wow. Okay.
Well, I'm not sleeping tonight. Thanks, Rick. I thought I was the Grim Reaper in the compliance space.
Oh, please.
Oh no, it's usually me. HR. Everybody hates HR. We ruin everything.
No. They see any of us come in, they're like, oh, and run away.
Yeah, they do. I'm amazed people ever come up and ask me to take a selfie with them because usually they're running the opposite direction. I don't want to talk to him. He'll tell me something I don't want to hear. But I would rather tell you a hard truth than an easy lie any day. No, at least you can never say I didn't know.
Three of us, we're here to help you. We really are advocating for the practice. The practice is our client. It sometimes means we have to tell a hard truth to the doctor, practice owner. Sometimes it means I have to tell them that they need to let one of their favorite team members go. We're here to protect the practice.
Yeah.
Really,
Right.
we can swear.
And because it's our job to protect the practice, sometimes we have to protect the dentist from themselves.
Oh, yes. Yes.
That's just the truth of it. I've walked into offices before and had to tell the dentist, listen, the problem is not your lazy team. The problem is not your awful patient base. The problem is not your location because you're in Inner Harbor, Baltimore. The problem is you. And honestly, even worse than the problem is you, that's a bad enough discussion. The worst problem is your spouse.
Ooh, that's a whole other touchy topic.
That's the harder discussion.
Is it though?
I can tell a dentist every day, you're the problem, because most of the time they'll look at me and go, I know. I'm a terrible business owner. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm too nice, or, I'm too mean. I'm in a bad mood. I have a bad attitude. They know. But when I say your spouse is destroying this practice and you need to fire your husband, they would rather quit than fire their spouse.
Mhm.
And this is coming from an ex-dental spouse.
Did you get fired as an ex-dental spouse?
I resigned effective immediately. But it can either be the best thing in the world or the worst thing in the world. You guys that are familiar with Beverly.
Mhm.
Her and her husband are the best thing in the world. They are the best partnership in the world. But then I've been in other offices where I'm just like, man, this husband, this wife, this spouse, they have to go. They're destroying the practice. But it's a hard decision. It's a hard thing to do.
I worked with my husband for almost 20 years, and I quit all the time and I fired him all the time. And we had those, like, our home life would bleed into the office, and it's so tough. But
It is.
if you can make it work, it's a beautiful thing.
Right.
But it's not for
Yeah.
everyone. And even for us, we got to a point where it was fun until it wasn't. And then it was miserable. And I remember coming in one day in the middle of COVID, and we had an office that was moving into a new location, and all the drywall had gone up, and then they ran out of money and said, I just want to use my old computer monitors. And I'm like, but we already bought the new computers. Like, this is why we got involved early. This is why we planned proactively. And I'm looking at the boxes sitting here. They're already ordered, paid for. Like, we already did this. And 45 minutes later, I was like, this is not my bliss. I don't want to do this anymore. And my husband was like, yeah, I'm not really enjoying this either. And I was like, that means something needs to change.
Right.
And I just wish more practice owners would recognize that your personal relationship really does need to be entirely separated from your work relationship. And I know they tend to bleed over sometimes, but oh man, maybe I just don't have a filter, but I don't have a problem saying that to people. Like,
They do.
the
And
person that
I
sucks.
mean, I will tell you, I knew the day we laid in bed talking about the P&L at the office was the day it was over.
Mhm.
That was when it was over, because we always tried. We had what we called the 100 rule, because going from where the office was to the house was, we had to, the center point, we had to cross over Route 100, which if you follow all the way north will take you right into Scranton. But we had to cross over Route 100 to get home. When we were going from home to the office, when we hit Route 100, we stopped talking about the kids and we started talking about work. Going home, when we hit Route 100, we stopped talking about work and it became home. And then just over years, it changed to now we're still mad at each other for something happened at the office, pulling into the garage. And now we're laying in bed talking about profitability and why did she order that one instead of this one, because this one is cheaper, in bed.
Mhm.
And that, I'm telling you, the day we discussed the office with our heads on the pillow was the day the marriage was over. It took a couple more years for it to actually be, but that was the day.
And I think that's regardless of whether your spouse works in the practice or out of the practice, I think that's definitely a healthy balance for that. And that lets you be that person that can say, hey, we're not doing something right and we do need to change. And so, like, looping this back to compliance, like myths that won't die, we end up with conversations like, well, but the seller did it. And the one spouse wants to continue doing it because it's the way we've always done. And they're afraid that we're going to lose team members if we change something different, afraid we're going to lose patients if we change and do something different. And the other one's like, I know, but we have to. And that's always ends up being the side that I end up having to live on of, you've got hills you've got to die on. And this is one of them. You do have to make some of these changes from a compliance perspective.
And that's the way I put it to people is, well, we just took over this practice and they always did it this way. And if we change it, employees are going to quit. Those employees don't want to work for you. They want to work for the old office that did it the old way. You're a new
Sometimes.
office.
I've had the other way where they were begging the associate to buy the practice.
Yeah, absolutely. But if we have to make this change, but you're scared to make it because the employees will quit, our practice does it this way. If you don't want to work here, go work for the old guy. Oh, wait, he sold and retired.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. Same thing with patients. You can find more patients.
Mhm.
You can't find more insurance companies to not audit you once they've started. Because
Does that happen?
that's the other thing a lot of people don't realize. There's a whole program. It's called Cirrus. There's a whole database that anytime an insurance company does an audit, they upload the results of the audit into this database. It's called Cirrus. And every insurance company in the country has access to that. So they can now go, whoa, Delta just recovered $340,000 from NPI 1111111. Let's take a look at their billing.
So you're going to end up with a snowball of audits if you get one and fail spectacularly.
It's just like the federal government.
Yeah.
Because what do you think happens when an OSHA inspector walks in and does an audit? It's called a referral. They're going to go, hey, just so you know, Mr. OCR auditor, while I was there, I saw this, this, and this. Is that an issue? They all refer to each other. The IRS refers to this one, and the Department of Justice refers to the Department of Treasury.
And IRS I've seen where you have somebody who's misclassifying team members as 1099 independent contractors instead of W-2 employees, and federal comes in and audits. Well, especially if you're state level with state taxes, now you've got other entities that are involved. Even if you don't have a state tax, like I'm in Texas, and we've had this happen too, where TWC, Texas Workforce Commission, gets involved because you tried to classify somebody as a contractor when they should have been an employee, and they didn't get their unemployment tax rate from those people. So now you've got multiple entities with their fingers in your bank account, potentially, because they do talk federal and state.
They do. And insurance companies talk. And if you think, here's the thing, a lot of people don't realize this. When the Department of Justice, the FBI, the Federal Department of Justice reaches a settlement with a dental office, whether it leads to arrests, criminal convictions, or just a civil monetary penalty, even if that monetary penalty is $1, it's published and posted on the DOJ website. Every single time, even if your settlement is $1, it's posted on the DOJ website. If you don't think that the insurance companies have one person whose full-time job it is to just read those postings every day, you're a fool.
But they have AI now.
Right.
They're going to be able to do it faster and more efficiently. I imagine that with some of the ways that entities are moving toward using AI for some of these things, that these are going to become more prevalent. Would be my prediction. I have no.
Audits are up 800% in the past 2 years. And it's because of AI. 25 years ago.
When you say audits are up, what audits from whom?
Insurance companies auditing practices.
Wow.
Because here's the thing, 25 years ago, the first CE class I ever took was taught by a guy who was a dentist. He retired from dentistry, forced retirement, whatever. Started teaching. He went to work for insurance companies as an auditor. He was a dental auditor for insurance companies as a retired dentist. In the class, this was the first dental CE I ever took. In the class, he said, they'll FedEx me 300 claim forms, and I have 2 or 3 months that I can look through those claim forms looking for red flags. What he did in 2 months, AI does in 8 seconds.
Yeah.
So now we wonder why audits are up. It's number one, I believe audits are up because of the bad advice. I blame social media. My grandparents blamed rock music. I blame social media because anybody can be an expert now. And the problem is there's so many wrong experts that people listen to, and then they get audited. I'm friends with a lot of other speakers. There are people we really try to just shut down because you give the bad advice, and then we get the phone calls 6 months later of, I listened to this and I did what this person said on this webinar or what they wrote in their article or in their book, and now I'm getting audited and I need help. And then we have to be the ones to fix it all because you messed up. And you messed up because you listened to the wrong person. And social media makes it too easy for anybody to be, and it's so odd to say because at the end of the day, we deal with dentists, but it makes it so easy for anybody to be a celebrity that, you listen to them and it's wrong.
Well, and sometimes it's not just the dentist. Like I'm in a lot of office manager groups and I see a lot of misinformation in some of those. And I've worked with enough dentists who are conflict averse and who want to delegate all of those tasks to somebody else in their practice, whether it's a spouse, an office manager, spouse acting as an office manager, whatever the case may be. They don't want to handle it themselves. And so they trust what
Right.
the person they've put in place to handle this says. And if that person is also getting misinformation, now you've got it circulating far and wide and sometimes compounding the problem because we, delegate via abdication and we don't actually pay attention to what's going on in our practice when we get to that headspace of, well, I just want to do dentistry. Okay, well, you probably should have stayed an associate. Sorry, you should have. If you just want to do
Right.
dentistry and you don't want to handle the business side, you really should have just reconsidered. Because while you might be taking home more, you may end up losing or writing a big check to one of these agencies or insurance companies whenever something goes wrong because the person you put in place to manage this is getting their information from Facebook.
Yeah. And I do believe for the vast majority of dental offices in the country at this point in time, getting audited isn't an if, it's a when, because there is so much information out there now. I was talking about all the messages I get every day from muggles, from non-dental people. I get just as many messages a day from people saying, I work at this office. I saw they were billing fraudulently. I brought it up to their attention and they fired me. What do I do? And you know what I tell them to do? Here's the 1-800-fraud phone number for Delta. Call and report it
Turn them in.
because it's the only way it's going to stop.
This conversation was just too good for one episode. Stay tuned for part 2. In the meantime, stay compliant AF.